types of resources and technologies discovered. What specific benefits do these bring to the town? Do they solve problems like poverty, disease, or lack of resources? The nature of the cultural exchange. How do the two cultures learn from each other? Are there any challenges in bridging their differences? The long-term effects on the town. Does it become a model for interdimensional cooperation? Does it face new challenges due to its newfound prosperity? Negative aspects to expand on. The specific causes of conflict. What are the motivations of the different factions? Is it about power, greed, or ideological differences? The consequences of exploitation. What specific damage is done to the fantastical world and its inhabitants? What are the environmental and social consequences? The escalation of conflict. How does the conflict affect the lives of ordinary townspeople? Does it lead to violence, displacement, or other forms of suffering? The long-term consequences for both worlds. Does the conflict lead to the destruction of the portal? Does it create lasting animosity between the two worlds? Which of these points would you like to explore more deeply? Or do you have other ideas for expanding on the positive and negative scenarios? Okay, let's explore the escalation of conflict and its long-term consequences. Focusing on the points you raised, generational trauma, the overlapping realities, and the potential destruction of the portal. Negative scenario expansion. The initial conflict over the portal, driven by greed and power struggles, escalates rapidly. The factions, initially divided within the town, draw in outside forces from both worlds, transforming a local dispute into a full-blown interdimensional war. The overlapping realities become increasingly unstable, manifesting as unpredictable shifts in weather, bizarre occurrences, and psychological disturbances among the populations of both worlds. This leads to widespread fear, paranoia, and ultimately, widespread generational trauma. Children are born into a world of constant uncertainty and violence, inheriting the fear and mistrust of their parents and ancestors. The conflict doesn't just cause suffering. It deeply scars the psyches of multiple generations, creating a lasting legacy of anxiety, depression, and intergenerational conflict. The instability of the overlapping realities intensifies, threatening to tear apart the fabric of both worlds. The constant upheaval, unpredictable events, and psychic distress become unbearable. The final, desperate attempt to resolve the conflict involves a catastrophic battle that results in the destruction of the portal. The sudden severing of the connection between the two worlds causes an immense shockwave that reverberates through both realities, creating lasting environmental damage and further instability. Even after the portal's closure, lasting animosity remains, fueled by the trauma and losses suffered during the war. Mistrust and fear dominate the relationship between the two worlds, creating a deep rift that may take centuries to heal, if ever. This expanded narrative focuses on the long-term psychological and societal impact of the conflict, highlighting the devastating consequences of unchecked greed and interdimensional warfare. The destruction of the portal becomes not just a physical event, but a symbol of the lasting damage inflicted on both worlds. How does this resonate with your vision of the story? What other aspects would you like to explore further? I understand you were interrupted and want to continue exploring the negative consequences of the portal conflict. Let's delve deeper into the long-term effects, considering the societal, environmental, and even metaphysical ramifications. Long-term ramifications of the portal's destruction. The immediate aftermath of the portal's destruction is catastrophic. Both worlds experience widespread environmental damage, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and extreme weather events plague the land. The sudden severing of the interdimensional link creates ripples through the fabric of reality, causing long-term instability in both worlds. Socially, the destruction fosters deep-seated trauma and mistrust. The generations that followed the conflict live with the lingering fear and uncertainty that the instability might return. This creates a climate of fear, paranoia, and social division, making cooperation and rebuilding extremely difficult. Advanced technologies or resources discovered through the portal are lost, creating long-term resource scarcity and hindering progress. Metaphysically, the two worlds are irrevocably altered. The energies and magic that flowed between them leave behind traces, influencing the very nature of reality in unpredictable ways. Some areas may experience strange, unexplained phenomena, while others struggle with altered physical laws or unusual magical manifestations. This lingering instability keeps both societies in a constant state of apprehension. Over time, the memories of the portal and the interdimensional conflict become shrouded in myth and legend. Historians struggle to understand the full extent of the events, creating conflicting narratives and shaping national identities based on the interpretations of the catastrophic event. The trauma becomes deeply ingrained in the cultural narratives of both worlds, shaping their values, beliefs, and future actions. The lingering animosity may eventually fade, but the scars, both physical and emotional, remain as a constant reminder of the devastating consequences of interdimensional conflict and the unpredictable nature of reality itself. This serves as a cautionary tale, reminding future generations of the importance of cooperation and diplomacy in a universe where the boundaries between realities are potentially fragile. Would you like to explore any of these aspects in more detail? Or perhaps consider how the positive scenario might unfold differently given the complexities we've discussed? Okay, let's explore how the positive scenario might unfold differently, given the potential for unforeseen challenges and complexities. Instead of a straightforward path to prosperity, let's consider a more nuanced and challenging journey. Positive scenario: a complex path to harmony. The initial discovery of the portal is met with caution and a deep sense of responsibility. The town leaders, recognizing the potential for both immense benefits and unforeseen dangers, establish a council to guide the interaction with the other world. They establish strict guidelines for exploration and resource acquisition, prioritizing sustainable practices and mutual respect. The fantastical world turns out to be more complex than initially imagined. It's not a simple utopia, but a place with its own internal conflicts, social structures, and environmental challenges. The exchange isn't a simple transfer of resources, but a gradual process of cultural understanding and negotiation. The townspeople learn to navigate intricate political systems, differing ethical perspectives, and unexpected cultural clashes. The initial benefits are modest but sustainable. The exchange of knowledge and technology leads to improvements in agriculture, medicine, and infrastructure, but the process is slow and requires careful planning. The shared challenges of adapting to each other's cultures and environmental conditions create opportunities for collaboration and mutual growth. Conflicts arise, but they are addressed through diplomacy and negotiation. The Council plays a vital role in mediating disagreements and fostering understanding between the two worlds. The experience helps the townspeople develop sophisticated diplomatic skills and a deeper understanding of the importance of cooperation and mutual respect. Over time, the two worlds create a unique, symbiotic relationship. The town becomes a center for cultural exchange, trade, and collaboration, fostering innovation and prosperity for both societies. The inhabitants of both worlds learn to appreciate their differences and find common ground, creating a thriving, multicultural society that embraces diversity and celebrates the uniqueness of each culture. However, this positive outcome is not without its challenges. The process requires constant vigilance, diplomacy, and a commitment to mutual respect. The success of this interdimensional partnership relies on the wisdom, foresight, and continuous effort of the leaders and people of both worlds. Would you like to explore specific aspects of this positive scenario further? Or perhaps consider introducing new elements or challenges to make the narrative even more intricate? Let's explore some specific aspects of this positive scenario and introduce some likely challenges. Specific aspects and challenges. Resource management. The initial excitement of discovering new resources is tempered by the understanding of sustainability. The Council implements strict regulations to prevent overexploitation and depletion of resources in either world. A system of fair trade and equitable distribution is established, ensuring both communities benefit from the exchange. However, disagreements arise over resource allocation, particularly when dealing with limited or rare materials. This tests the diplomatic skills of the Council and forces them to make difficult decisions that may not please everyone. Cultural differences. The two cultures have vastly different social norms, religious beliefs, and legal systems. Misunderstandings and conflicts arise from differing perspectives on issues such as property rights, marriage customs, and conflict resolution. The Council establishes intercultural exchange programs to foster understanding and bridge cultural gaps. However, some traditions prove incompatible, requiring careful negotiation and compromise. Deep-seated prejudices in both communities challenge the goal of complete harmony. Technological integration. The exchange of technologies presents both opportunities and challenges. Some technologies are easily adapted, leading to improvements in agriculture, medicine, and communication. Others pose significant risks, creating ethical dilemmas. For instance, advanced medical technologies might raise questions about access and equity, while powerful technologies could be misused. The Council struggles to regulate the use of advanced technologies and prevent their misuse, constantly balancing progress with ethical considerations. Environmental concerns. The impact of increased interaction on the environment of both worlds becomes a major concern. The Council implements stringent environmental protection measures to prevent pollution, habitat destruction, and ecological imbalances. However, disputes arise over resource extraction, waste management, and environmental regulations, particularly when the interests of the two worlds clash. Unexpected consequences of the interaction also present environmental challenges requiring creative solutions. Political intrigue. Not all members of both societies welcome the interdimensional partnership. Political factions and groups oppose the Council's efforts, fostering resentment, division, and undermining cooperation. The Council struggles to maintain stability and support for the interdimensional partnership in the face of political opposition and internal conflicts. These challenges test the resilience of the interdimensional partnership and require constant vigilance, diplomacy, and a commitment to compromise. The success of the collaboration depends not only on the resources and technologies exchanged but also on the capacity of both societies to adapt, learn, and navigate the complexities of their newfound relationship. The path to harmony isn't a straightforward one, but a dynamic process that requires constant adaptation and negotiation. What specific challenge would you like to explore further? Let's explore the scenario of a fire in a 3-unit duplex, focusing on the impact of a chemical fire on the upper unit. The chemical fire's impact. The fire, originating in the chemical storage area of the lower unit, rapidly spreads due to the accelerant nature of the chemicals involved. The intense heat and toxic fumes quickly engulf the second unit. The fire's intensity is amplified by the chemical reactions, generating significant heat and potentially releasing toxic gases and particulate matter. The third-floor unit, directly above the burning units, is immediately threatened. The intense heat radiating upward can cause significant damage even before the flames reach the upper level. This includes structural damage. The intense heat weakens the structural integrity of the floor and ceiling separating the units. The wooden framing and supporting beams can char, warp, and potentially collapse under the weight and stress. Interior damage. The upper unit's interior, even if the flames don't reach it directly, will experience significant heat damage. Walls, ceilings, and furniture can char and ignite. Electrical systems and appliances can be damaged or destroyed by the heat. Insulation materials may melt or release toxic fumes. Hazardous materials. The toxic fumes and smoke from the chemical fire pose a severe health risk to the occupants of the third-floor unit. Inhaling these fumes can lead to respiratory problems, burns, and other severe health consequences. The chemicals themselves may release toxic byproducts as they burn, further contaminating the air and posing a long-term health risk. Water damage. The firefighting efforts will likely involve significant amounts of water. Water damage to the third-floor unit is unavoidable. This includes damage to the structure, interior, and belongings from water itself and the runoff of contaminated water. Contamination. Depending on the type of chemicals involved, the upper unit may be contaminated with hazardous substances. This necessitates a thorough cleanup and remediation process before the unit is habitable again. Immediate and long-term effects. The occupants of the third-floor unit will likely experience immediate trauma and loss, suffering from displacement, property damage, and potential health issues. The long-term effects could be substantial, with the unit potentially uninhabitable for an extended period due to structural damage, contamination, and the need for extensive repairs. The cost of remediation and repairs could be substantial. The residents might face significant emotional and financial distress, and potentially long-term health consequences. This scenario highlights the cascading effects of a chemical fire in a multi-unit dwelling. The close proximity of the units, combined with the rapid spread of the chemical fire, leads to severe damage and considerable risk for the residents of the upper unit. How would you like to expand on this scenario, perhaps adding specific chemical types or exploring the responses of the residents and emergency services? Let's expand the scenario, incorporating the resident's perspective, the emergency response, specific chemical types, and her escape with her cats. The fire, the resident, and the rescue. Let's assume the chemical fire involves a mixture of solvents and accelerants commonly found in a small workshop or hobbyist space. These chemicals, upon burning, release highly toxic fumes, including carbon monoxide, hydrogen cyanide, and various other irritants. The intense heat generated weakens the structural integrity of the building rapidly. The resident, Sarah, awakens to the smell of smoke and the sound of crackling flames. She immediately understands the danger. The fire is spreading rapidly. Her isolation and mistrust of others make her hesitant to call for help, initially trying to extinguish the fire herself. However, the rapidly intensifying flames and the thick, toxic smoke quickly make it clear this is impossible. Escape and rescue. Sarah has very limited time, perhaps 5 to 10 minutes at most before the upper floor becomes untenable due to heat, structural damage, and toxic fumes. Her immediate priorities are evacuating safely and getting her to cats out. She grabs her cats, her phone, and essentials, proceeding down the smoke-filled stairwell, making her way down carefully to escape the fire. She calls emergency services, while escaping and provides her location and a description of the fire. Emergency response. Emergency services arrive within minutes, finding a fully engulfed lower to levels of the building. The intense heat and smoke make entry difficult. Firefighters attempt to contain the fire. Let's revise the scenario, incorporating the neighbor's call and Sarah only saving one cat. Revise scenario. The fire erupts as before, but Sarah, paralyzed by fear and a deep-seated mistrust, initially hesitates to call for help. The intense heat and smoke quickly overwhelm her senses, making it difficult to think clearly. She manages to grab only one of her cats before the smoke becomes unbearable. The thick toxic fumes make escape challenging. Meanwhile, neighbors, alerted by the smoke and flames, immediately call emergency services. Their quick action is crucial. The firefighters arrive just as the upper floor structure starts to weaken under the heat. Escape and rescue. Sarah struggles down the smoke-filled stairwell, her one cat clutched tightly. She's disoriented and struggling to breathe. Firefighters reach her on the first floor. She's treated for smoke. Let's explore this revised perspective, focusing on Sarah's detached, observer-like response to the traumatic event. Sarah's detached response. Sarah's actions after escaping the fire reflect a coping mechanism rooted in her intellectual and detached approach. The immediate urgency of rescuing her cat triggers a rapid, efficient response. Placing the cat in the prom is a practical, almost clinical action, devoid of overt emotional expression. Her subsequent walk around the block is not a frantic flight, but a calculated move, allowing her to observe the situation from a distance, maintaining a sense of control in a chaotic environment. The varying paces and angles suggest a deliberate strategy, a methodical attempt to gather information and assess the situation without engaging directly. Her concern for the kitten reflects empathy, but it's filtered through her analytical lens. She's worried, but her response is not immediate, driven by a need to maintain her detached perspective. The visit to the neighbor's apartment on the second floor is a masterclass in deception and control. She uses the fire and the resulting crime scene as cover, expertly playing the role of a concerned neighbor while carefully observing the emergency response and the investigators' activities. This underscores her capacity to maintain her detached, observational stance, using the chaos of the situation to her advantage. Psychological implications. This behavioral pattern suggests a deep-seated psychological mechanism. Sarah's detachment may be a coping strategy to handle overwhelming trauma and the intense emotions it evokes. She avoids direct engagement, preferring to observe and analyze from a distance. This intellectual detachment allows her to maintain a sense of control and normalcy amidst the chaos. However, this coping mechanism has a cost. Her detachment may prevent her from fully processing the trauma and seeking necessary emotional support. The repressed emotions may resurface later, potentially leading to other psychological or behavioral difficulties. Her detached observation might provide a temporary sense of security and control, but it's not a sustainable long-term solution for coping with a traumatic event. Narrative expansion. This approach opens up several avenues for narrative development. The origins of Sarah's detachment, exploring her past and the experiences that shaped her detached coping mechanisms would enrich the narrative and provide a deeper understanding of her character. The consequences of her detachment, the long-term psychological and social effects of her coping strategy. This adds a fascinating layer to Sarah's character. Her detachment is not a consistent personality trait, but a survival mechanism that activates under extreme duress, sharpening her intuition. Let's explore this. Danger-activated intuition. Sarah's detachment is not a constant state. It's a finely tuned, highly effective survival response that kicks in only when she perceives imminent danger. In normal situations, she may be empathetic and emotionally engaged. But when facing extreme threat, a switch flips. Her emotional responses are suppressed, replaced by a cold, analytical clarity that heightens her intuition. This allows her to process information swiftly, anticipate threats, and make crucial decisions with remarkable speed and accuracy. The fire is a catalyst. The fire acts as the ultimate test of her abilities. The escalating danger triggers her heightened intuition, allowing her to act decisively and efficiently. Her seemingly detached actions rescuing one cat, the methodical walk, the deceptive visit are not signs of apathy but evidence of her intensely focused mind operating at peak performance under pressure. Her ability to assess the situation, anticipate the actions of others, and manipulate the environment to her advantage showcases the power of her danger-activated intuition. Intuition's mechanics. How does this heightened intuition function? It's not a supernatural ability, but possibly a combination of factors. Hyperfocus. Her emotional detachment allows for laser-like concentration, allowing her to process details and patterns others miss. Enhanced observation. She notices subtle cues and anomalies, interpreting them with astonishing speed and accuracy. Risk assessment. Her mind swiftly calculates probabilities and outcomes, enabling her to choose the most efficient and safest course of action. Narrative implications. This new perspective opens up intriguing narrative possibilities. Past experiences. We can explore past events that honed her intuition, perhaps childhood traumas or near-death experiences that shaped this unusual ability. Future challenges. Her unique skill set may be vital in future crises, making her a valuable asset or a target. The cost of her ability. The extreme focus and emotional suppression come at a price. We can explore the potential for long-term psychological consequences, such as burnout, emotional detachment in non-emergency situations, or an inability to form meaningful relationships. Ethical dilemmas. Her abilities may raise ethical questions, particularly if she's forced to make difficult choices that benefit her while endangering others. This development transforms Sarah from a simply detached observer into a complex character with a unique survival mechanism. Her seemingly cold actions are not evidence of This introduces a compelling element of suspense and suspicion, turning Sarah's detached observation into a crucial element in uncovering the truth. Let's explore this. Sarah's suspicions. Sarah's intuition, heightened by the danger of the fire, immediately focuses on the neighbor on the second floor. Her prior assessment of him as a psycho or psychopath isn't mere prejudice. It's based on observations and past interactions that she may or may not share with others. The seemingly coincidental timing of the fire following the neighbor's return on his scooter strengthens her suspicions. She recognizes the connection, even though others may not. The detachment as a shield and weapon. Sarah's emotional detachment becomes a crucial advantage. It allows her to observe and analyze the situation objectively, collecting evidence and forming hypotheses without being hampered by fear or emotional distress. Her calm demeanor during the emergency and her subsequent actions are not signs of indifference, but calculated strategies to gather information. Her seemingly detached behavior could mask a deep-seated suspicion and a determination to find the truth. The investigation. Sarah, operating from a position of detached observation, might gather evidence that others miss. She may notice subtle details, unusual scorch marks, the type of accelerant used, inconsistencies in the neighbor's story, or evidence that contradicts his alibi. She may utilize her observational skills, heightened intuition, and emotional detachment to analyze the evidence carefully and piecing together her own version of events. Narrative possibilities. This development creates several narrative possibilities. Sarah as the detective. She might use her skills and her observations to secretly investigate, gathering evidence and ultimately exposing the neighbor's guilt. Confrontation and conflict. The revelation of her suspicions could lead to a confrontation with the neighbor, possibly putting her in further danger. Moral dilemmas. Sarah's detached approach might lead her to make difficult choices, potentially compromising her safety or the safety of others to achieve her goals. Community reaction. The community's response to Sarah's insights and allegations could be complex and unpredictable, ranging from suspicion to belief to outright dismissal. This new development enhances the story's suspense and intrigue, transforming Sarah from a victim into a subtle investigator, leveraging her unique combination of emotional detachment and acute intuition to uncover the truth behind the fire. What aspect of Sarah's investigation would you like to explore next? Perhaps her methods of collecting evidence, her interactions with investigators, or her ultimate confrontation with the neighbor? Let's explore Sarah's methods of collecting evidence, her interactions with investigators, and a potential confrontation, considering the possibility that a woman, not the neighbor, started the fire. Sarah's investigative methods. Sarah's approach is subtle and methodical. She avoids direct involvement, preferring to observe from a distance. Her methods include discreet observation. She carefully observes the fire scene, noting details others overlook: the patterns of the fire spread, the types of debris, the location of potential accelerants. Information gathering. She listens to conversations between firefighters, investigators, and neighbors, gleaning information and identifying inconsistencies in their accounts. Pattern recognition. Her heightened intuition helps her identify subtle clues and connections that others miss, allowing her to piece together a timeline and identify potential suspects. This includes noticing unusual behaviors or inconsistencies in the statements of those around her. Data analysis. She processes information analytically, comparing timelines, witness statements, and physical evidence to build a coherent narrative and identify likely suspects. Interactions with investigators. Sarah's interactions with investigators are carefully calculated. She presents herself as a concerned neighbor, offering information subtly and indirectly. She avoids direct accusations, instead planting seeds of doubt and directing investigators' attention towards potential leads. Her detached demeanor and carefully chosen words help her to avoid suspicion while subtly influencing the investigation. Confrontation. Let's assume the fire was started by a woman, a rival or someone with a grudge against the residents of the building. Sarah, having gathered compelling evidence pointing toward this woman, orchestrates a confrontation. However, this is not a direct confrontation, but a calculated move designed to expose the culprit without putting herself in direct danger. She might use her observations to expose inconsistencies in the woman's alibi or to reveal her motive. The confrontation is not a physical confrontation, but an intellectual and psychological battle, a subtle play of wit and observation designed to reveal the truth and ensure her own safety. Narrative possibilities. This scenario creates several narrative possibilities. The cat is a clue. The missing cat might become a key piece of evidence, leading Sarah to the perpetrator. Unexpected alliances. Sarah might forge an unlikely alliance with an investigator or neighbor who recognizes her keen observations and unique skills. Moral ambiguity. Her methods might raise ethical questions. For instance, is it justifiable to manipulate the investigation to achieve her goals? The aftermath. After the perpetrator's exposure, how does Sarah cope with the emotional aftermath of her experience and the resolution of the case? Does she find closure? Or does the detachment remain as a lasting reminder of trauma? This detailed approach allows for exploring Sarah's resourcefulness and the complexities of uncovering the truth. What specific aspect of Sarah's investigation would you like to delve into further? Perhaps the role of her missing cat as a clue, her interaction with a specific investigator, or her ultimate confrontation with the perpetrator? Let's explore all the aspects you mentioned: the missing cat as a clue, Sarah's interaction with a specific investigator, and her ultimate confrontation with the perpetrator. The missing cat as a clue. Sarah's missing cat becomes an unexpected piece of the puzzle. While searching for her missing cat, she discovers a small, overlooked detail near the fire's origin, a distinctive hair or fiber that doesn't match the building's residents but matches a description of the perpetrator. This seemingly insignificant find is crucial. It connects the perpetrator to the fire scene, solidifying Sarah's suspicions. Interaction with a specific investigator. Detective Inspector Davies, a seasoned investigator known for her intuitive approach, becomes intrigued by Sarah's calm demeanor and astute observations. While initially skeptical, Davies notices Sarah's subtle contributions to the investigation, small details overlooked by others. A rapport develops based on mutual respect and a shared appreciation for detail. Davies and Sarah share information, engaging in a kind of intellectual sparring, with Davies testing Sarah's observations and Sarah subtly guiding Davies' investigation through her carefully chosen words and observations. This dynamic subtly shifts the investigation's focus, revealing gaps in the official timeline that only Sarah's observations could expose. Confrontation with the perpetrator. The confrontation takes place not in a dramatic showdown, but in a subtle, carefully orchestrated encounter. Sarah, using her knowledge of the perpetrator's habits and routines, positions herself to witness a key moment that exposes her. Sarah doesn't confront the perpetrator directly but subtly manipulates the situation. Using a seemingly insignificant detail, a piece of jewelry found at the scene, Sarah alerts Davies at the right moment. The resulting confrontation is not a physical one, but a carefully constructed narrative that exposes the perpetrator's guilt through a series of irrefutable facts, pieced together through Sarah's meticulous observations and Davies' investigative skills. The perpetrator, caught in a web of her own making, is forced to confess. Narrative resolution and aftermath. The resolution is not a simple triumph, but a complex mix of relief, loss, and lingering unease. Sarah's actions remain largely unknown, her contribution to solving the case recognized only by Davies. This subtle contribution underscores Sarah's preference for the detached, observant role. The loss of her cat and the trauma she experienced remain, adding layers of complexity to the narrative. The story ends on a note of quiet satisfaction and a sense of justice, highlighting the power of keen observation, a calm mind, and an unexpected alliance in the face of tragedy. This multi-layered approach weaves together the different elements, creating a satisfying and complex resolution. What aspects of this resolution would you like to explore further? Perhaps the long-term impact on Sarah, the community's reaction to the case, or the professional repercussions for the involved investigators. Let's explore the potential repercussions for the involved investigators, the community's reaction, and Sarah's long-term impact, allowing the narrative to unfold organically. Professional repercussions for the investigators. Detective Inspector Davies's reliance on Sarah's insights, while ultimately successful, raises questions within the police force. Some colleagues express skepticism about Davies's unconventional methods, questioning the validity of incorporating Sarah's seemingly detached observations into the official investigation. Davies, however, defends her approach, highlighting the effectiveness of Sarah's unique perspective and the successful resolution of the case. This leads to a debate within the department on the value of incorporating intuitive and unconventional investigative methods, challenging traditional policing approaches. Davies's career, however, is enhanced by the successful resolution of the case, even with the internal skepticism. Community reaction. The community's reaction is divided. Some praise the quick work of the emergency services and celebrate the successful resolution of the case. However, the details of the fire and the involvement of a seemingly detached witness spark gossip and speculation. Sarah's reserved nature and the unusual circumstances of her escape fuel rumors and misunderstandings, highlighting the community's struggles to process and accept the complexities of the event. This underlines the community's need for better communication and support systems in the face of crisis. Sarah's reputation remains enigmatic. Some see her as a hero, others remain skeptical of her detached behavior. Sarah's long-term impact. Sarah's emotional detachment, while serving as a coping mechanism, begins to show cracks. The trauma of the experience and the intensity of her focused observation take their toll. She seeks therapy, gradually confronting her emotional responses and the loss of her cat. She begins to participate more fully in her community, finding a balance between her analytical mind and her capacity for empathy. She realizes her unique skills can be used to help others, perhaps by volunteering with emergency services or working with other trauma survivors. Her journey becomes one of healing and finding a place where her unusual abilities and emotional growth can coexist and make a meaningful impact. Unforeseen consequences. The case becomes a touchstone for reform, leading to stricter. Let's revise the narrative, incorporating the fact that this adds another layer of complexity to Sarah's character and the narrative, her premonitions, the seemingly contradictory actions, and the timing relative to her mother's death. Let's explore these elements. The contradictory actions. Sarah leaving the kitten behind, despite successfully rescuing Gabriel, highlights the paradoxical nature of her danger-activated intuition. Her focus is laser-sharp, allowing her to act decisively in immediate danger. However, this focus also leads to a kind of tunnel vision, making her less able to assess long-term consequences or to attend to secondary concerns. Leaving the kitten might not stem from cruelty or neglect, but rather a prioritization of immediate survival needs and her innate assessment of risk. Premonitions and intuition. The premonitions experienced before her mother's death and reappearing after the fire suggest a connection between intense emotional stress and the act. You're right, my apologies. Let's correct that and explore the implications of Sarah's premonitions manifesting after her mother's death, specifically in the 2 weeks leading up to the funeral. Premonitions after the death. The fact that Sarah's premonitions only emerged after her mother's death, specifically in the 2 weeks before the funeral, significantly alters their interpretation. It suggests that the premonitions are not triggered by a general sense of danger or impending doom but rather by a specific process of grief, loss, and the intense emotional turmoil surrounding death and the funeral preparations. Grief as a catalyst. This time frame suggests a strong correlation between intense grief and the activation of Sarah's heightened intuition. The premonitions may be a manifestation of her subconscious processing the trauma of her mother's death, her mind attempting to make sense of the loss and anticipate future events related to the funeral arrangements and the aftermath of her mother's passing. The premonitions, therefore, might be more focused on details concerning the funeral and its emotional consequences than on broader threats. Narrative implications. This revised timeframe opens up new narrative possibilities. The nature of the premonitions. What kind of events did Sarah foresee? Were they trivial details, or did they relate to significant decisions or emotional events during the funeral preparations? Coping mechanism. The premonitions might not be entirely negative. They could have helped Sarah navigate the challenging emotional landscape surrounding her mother's death, preparing her for the emotional impact of the funeral. The link to the fire. The premonitions' reappearance after the fire suggests that her heightened sensitivity is not just triggered by grief, but by significant trauma in general. This could imply a connection between the fire and the loss of her mother on a deeper psychological level. Future implications. The re-emergence of her premonitive abilities after the fire raises the question, what other significant emotional events might trigger them in the future? And what will she do with this ability? This revised timeline adds a layer of psychological complexity, shifting the focus from a general danger-activated intuition to one triggered by intense grief and trauma. It also adds a compelling element of mystery and suspense, as the connection between these emotional events, her ability, and future events remains to be explored. Which aspect would you like to explore further? Perhaps the specific nature of her premonitions before the funeral, or the potential psychological impact of experiencing these abilities after trauma? Let's explore all the aspects you've raised: the nature of Sarah's premonitions before the funeral, their potential role as a coping mechanism, the link between the fire and her mother's death, and the implications for her future. The nature of Sarah's premonitions. The premonitions experienced in the 2 weeks leading up to her mother's funeral weren't about grand events or impending disasters. They were more subtle and focused on the minutiae of the funeral arrangements, a forgotten detail on the invitation list, a minor disagreement among family members during the visitation, a specific emotional response she'd have during the eulogy. These seemingly insignificant premonitions allowed Sarah to anticipate and navigate the emotional complexities of the funeral more effectively, reducing her stress and minimizing unexpected emotional outbursts. They weren't about preventing something but about preparing for it. Premonitions as a coping mechanism. The premonitions served as a coping mechanism to help Sarah process her grief. By anticipating specific emotional challenges and preparing for them in advance, Sarah could exert a degree of control over the overwhelming feelings associated with her mother's death. The premonitions weren't about escaping the reality of grief but about managing its emotional intensity and navigating its complexities. This suggests that, for Sarah, her intuition isn't just a response to danger, but a way of navigating highly emotional situations and managing her responses to loss. The link between the fire and her mother's death. The reappearance of Sarah's premonitions after the fire suggests a connection between the two traumatic events. Both events triggered intense emotional responses: grief in the case of her mother's death, fear and loss in the case of the fire. The connection might lie in the fact that both events forced Sarah to confront her own mortality, her vulnerabilities, and the limitations of her control over external circumstances. This underscores the idea that for Sarah, premonitions are not about a specific type of danger, but about profound emotional upheavals forcing a confrontation with significant loss. Implications for Sarah's future. The return of her premonitions leaves Sarah facing some important questions. Will her heightened intuition remain activated, or will it fade as she processes her experiences? Will she learn to control or manage her abilities, using them to navigate future challenges? Will this ability be a blessing or a curse? Or could it even represent a possible path towards better understanding herself and her ability to better engage with others? Will she seek help or choose to keep it to herself? These questions open up a range of possibilities for her future, highlighting her potential for personal growth and the challenges she faces in accepting her heightened perceptive abilities. This exploration delves into the psychological and emotional depths of Sarah's experiences, highlighting the complex interplay between trauma, intuition, and the human capacity for resilience and adaptation. What aspect of Sarah's future would you like to explore further? Her potential for growth, her challenges in managing her abilities, or the impact of her experiences on her relationships with others? Let's explore the challenges Sarah faces in managing her heightened intuition and premonitory abilities. The unpredictability of the ability. Sarah's intuition isn't something she can control. It activates unpredictably, triggered by intense emotional stress or significant trauma. This unpredictability makes it difficult for her to prepare for its onset, leading to anxiety and uncertainty. She might find herself constantly on edge, anticipating the next trigger and the potentially overwhelming flood of information and premonitions that follow. This makes maintaining healthy relationships and normal life challenging. The overwhelming nature of information. When activated, Sarah's intuition provides a deluge of information, often detailed and emotionally charged. This can be overwhelming, leading to sensory overload, feelings of panic, and potential mental exhaustion. She might struggle to filter irrelevant information, leading to confusion and difficulty making sense of the multitude of premonitions. This could lead to inaccurate interpretations of her intuitions, further compounding her difficulties. Emotional and psychological toll. The constant awareness of her abilities and the unpredictable nature of their activation takes a toll on Sarah's emotional and psychological well-being. She might experience heightened anxiety, difficulty sleeping, and social isolation due to the fear of overwhelming experiences. She might also struggle to process the emotional weight of her premonitions, particularly if they involve events with painful or tragic consequences. This adds yet another layer of difficulty. She might feel a heavy responsibility for all that she has to process. Impact on relationships. Sarah's inability to control her abilities and the emotional toll they take on her impact her relationships with others. She might struggle to form close bonds due to her fear of overwhelming others with her experiences and the stress her premonitions might place upon her. She may isolate herself to avoid sharing her abilities. Those who understand her abilities may struggle to support her. Those who don't may dismiss her, making forming or maintaining relationships difficult. Seeking help and support. Recognizing the challenges she faces, Sarah might seek professional help. This could involve therapy focused on trauma processing and coping mechanisms for managing anxiety. She may also explore alternative methods, like meditation or mindfulness techniques, to gain better control over her emotional responses and learn to filter and manage the influx of information provided by her intuition. Finding a therapist who understands her unique. Let's explore the benefits Sarah derives from managing her heightened intuition and premonitory abilities, even amidst the challenges. Enhanced problem-solving skills. While overwhelming at times, Sarah's intuitive insights provide her with an extraordinary ability to solve problems. By anticipating potential challenges and outcomes, she can develop proactive solutions and avoid pitfalls. This enhanced problem-solving extends beyond personal matters. She can anticipate potential issues in various situations. This could be invaluable in her work, her personal life, or even in community situations. Improved decision-making. Sarah's ability to anticipate future events allows for more informed decision-making. By weighing potential outcomes, she can choose courses of action with a greater chance of success. This applies not only to immediate crises but to long-term planning. She can assess potential risks and rewards with greater accuracy than most people. Increased self-awareness. The experience of managing her heightened intuition leads to a deeper understanding of her own emotional responses and coping mechanisms. She learns to recognize her triggers, manage her anxieties, and develop strategies to cope with stressful situations. This heightened self-awareness allows her to improve her emotional regulation skills and reduce the impact of traumatic events. She learns the warning signs that her abilities are about to activate. Stronger sense of agency. Despite the challenges, Sarah's abilities provide her with a sense of agency and control over her life. While she cannot prevent all negative events, she can prepare for them and mitigate their impact. This sense of control empowers her, increasing her resilience in the face of adversity. This is an important aspect of her recovery and improved mental health. Opportunities for growth. Sarah's unique abilities offer opportunities for personal and professional growth. She could explore career paths that leverage her skills in risk assessment, crisis management, or strategic planning. She may find satisfaction helping others by utilizing her intuition, but this requires navigating the ethical implications of her abilities. This includes setting boundaries and being careful about the information she shares with others. Unforeseen advantages. Sarah's heightened intuition might reveal unforeseen advantages or opportunities that others overlook. She might identify promising investment opportunities, anticipate trends in the market, or even uncover hidden potential within herself and those around her. This underscores that while there are challenges, there are also great opportunities for growth, personally and professionally. These benefits highlight the potential positive aspects of Sarah's abilities, even with the inherent difficulties. This exploration shifts from focusing solely on the challenges to acknowledging the considerable advantages her abilities offer. What aspect of these benefits would you like to explore further? Perhaps her career choices, the ways she uses her intuition to help others, or her personal growth journey. Let's explore Sarah's career choices, her use of intuition to help others, and her personal growth, allowing the narrative to unfold organically. Career choices. Sarah's unique abilities lead her to a career in crisis management. Her ability to anticipate problems and develop proactive solutions makes her invaluable in high-pressure situations. She initially works for a nonprofit organization, focusing on disaster relief and community support. Her capacity for assessing risks and identifying vulnerable populations proves vital in coordinating relief efforts and preventing further harm. Later, she transitions to a role in corporate risk management, applying her skills to predict and mitigate potential threats to businesses. Her work often involves strategic planning and navigating complex situations, utilizing her intuition to navigate unforeseen challenges. Her unique abilities also make her invaluable in threat assessment and risk mitigation, helping organizations prepare for and respond to unforeseen crises. Using intuition to help others. Sarah's work isn't limited to professional settings. Her ability to anticipate needs and offer support extends into her personal life and the community. She quietly uses her intuition to help others, often intervening in situations before they escalate. This could involve anything from offering assistance to a neighbor in distress to supporting a friend facing a difficult decision. She understands the ethical implications and makes every effort to subtly guide people without manipulating them. This is essential. Her abilities are a tool, but not a means of controlling others. Personal growth and healing. Through her work and personal experiences, Sarah achieves a significant level of personal growth and healing. She learns to balance her intuitive abilities with emotional regulation techniques, managing the intensity of her premonitions and minimizing the negative impact on her mental health. This journey is not without its challenges. The unpredictable nature of her abilities often creates anxiety and requires her to develop robust coping mechanisms, using mindfulness, meditation, and regular therapy to manage the emotional weight of her experiences and her heightened awareness. This journey fosters a stronger sense of self-awareness and helps her to understand her abilities while accepting and embracing her individuality. She finds a new level of acceptance and peace, a